We all know a night out at the club in Vegas can get a little bit pricey, but I've got a tip that can save you a cover fee at some of the hottest nightclubs. All you have to do is sign up online for free with a credible guest list service. Then, just show up before 10:30 and check right in. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
No way that I'm betting on the Cleveland Cavaliers for any reason whatsoever.
No.
Ever. Like, when they had LeBron James, it was a different story. I think Spider's great. He's no LeBron. I don't see him carrying them to a title. And I don't believe in the Knicks at all. The Knicks never get it done.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Kevin Durant, at the age of 36 years old, after 17 seasons that he has played in the NBA DRS, is now on his way to H-Town.
I don't think it's a great move. I wanted him to go to a ready-made championship team full of a veteran roster and see if he can ring chase that way. Not to go to an organization on the come-up that if you just stay the course, and also, what better blueprint do we have than just staying the course and safe, right?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Drama in Utah. Will newly drafted Ace Bailey even play for the Jazz? Plus, the NHL season gets even longer as 2 more games are added with the new CBA deal with players. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Derryl Barnes, filling in for Renee. Thanks so much for joining us. Every weekday, we chat the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We've got ESPN's Bobby Marks on deck to give us his winners and losers from the NBA draft coming up later. But first, let's dive into the headlines on the shoot-around.
Yeah, let's stay in the NBA, Derryl. The Toronto Raptors have fired their president, Masai Ujiri. This all according to Shams. The former NBA Executive of the Year led Toronto to its only title back in 2019 and was in the final year of his contract, but has been linked to multiple teams in the past, including most recently, Derryl, with the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, one of those teams, even the New York Knicks interested. Yeah. Everyone at one point, it seems like, wanted Masai Ujiri. He brought in Kawhi Leonard, led them to that championship. I'm sure he's going to have no problem finding another job.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only thing that's just interesting is why was he let go? And that's going to be, I guess, the big mystery for Toronto. Meanwhile, after 17 years, TNT no longer is going to operate and program NBA TV and NBA.com. This all starting October 1st. This is the network closed their 40-year chapter covering the NBA. Now, sources tell our Mike McCarthy that MLB Network has had preliminary discussions about the possibility of taking over NBA TV production in Secaucus, New Jersey, similar to how they've done with the NHL Network. So how crazy would that be to have MLB Network house NBA TV and NHL Network too?
Yeah, it sounds a little confusing when you say like, oh, MLB having NHL.
Yeah.
But no, what is interesting though is that Turner, TNT, they own Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, are all part of the same company. So they'll still be doing digital highlights for the NBA, for House of Highlights, Bleacher Report, but just continues to show that kind of messy divorce after TNT didn't get NBA rights in this last agreement.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, NBA TV was always usually headquartered in Atlanta. It seems like now, if it does go to MLB Network, they'd have to move to New Jersey. Well, we have some big conference news for you. Texas State has informed the Sun Belt Conference that they're intending to join the newly formed Pac-12 for the 2026 season. And their addition will finally give the rebuilt league the minimum number of teams to continue as an NCAA conference. Now, Derryl, the new Pac-12, used to have members like UCLA and USC and Oregon in it. Well, now it's going to have new members like Boise State and Gonzaga and now Texas State.
Yeah, and they dreamed of having someone like Texas join the Pac-12.
Just a few years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now the best that they can do is Texas State. But what a crazy rise this is for a school like Texas State.
True.
I mean, what, the 7th largest school in Texas?
Yes.
And it's all thanks to rich donors, NIL, helping them just continue to move up that ladder, attract better players, move up the ladder, moved up to the Sun Belt Conference, and now another big conference, or at least a bigger conference.
I mean, it would be unheard of just a few years ago to think a Sun Belt Conference team would be added to the Pac-12, but that just shows you where the alignment of conferences are in the NCAA. Well, ahead of Friday's draft, the NHL and the NHLPA are in the final stages of agreeing to a new 4-year CBA extension. This would reportedly include an 84th game in the regular season, plus a solution for emergency goalies, and even limit player contract lengths to 7 years, which is crazy to think. You know, we've had these emergency goalie situations where Zamboni drivers or random accountants at teams had to be the emergency backup goalies. Now it all seems like we finally have an answer with this new CBA.
What position would you play as an emergency?
Oh, as an emergency? I mean, I don't know if I could ever play as an emergency goalie, but it is funny just like how this has all come about. Maybe I would play like an emergency center or something like that in basketball.
I don't know. I'd give emergency goalie a shot, and then I think one good slap shot to the face hit me in the mask, and I'd be too scared. I gotta call it quits.
But it looks like this new deal is going to happen, and it's going to go through at least the 2030 season. And of course, this is all happening as the NHL draft is happening tonight. So let's dive in further into what this new CBA is going to look like for the NHL, and is it a win for the players who now have to play 2 more regular season games? Let's dive into that and more in our main event. All right, let's bring in Front Office Sports editorial director Meredith Turitz, who's been following this for us. Meredith, good to see you as always. So let's talk about what the new CBA includes here.
Yes, so it's a pretty landmark deal. It has not technically been signed yet. They're at the Memorandum of Understanding agreement side of things, but we expect it to actually be announced ahead of the NHL draft tonight. In terms of what's in it, it's pretty sweeping. So we are seeing kind of, the little elements, things like the elimination of player dress codes and, the outlawing of player deferred salary and contracts, which is very interesting. Elimination of the emergency backup goalie, which is, kind of a fun one in its own way. No more beer league goalies, no more Zamboni drivers popping into games when things go awry. But the 2 biggest pieces of it that are really interesting, number one is the lengths at which players can sign has changed. So currently, you can do a max contract to stay with your team for 8 years. That number is being bumped down to 7. And then if you go on the UFA market, that number is being lowered to 6. And the other piece of it that's pretty marquee is the extension of the season from 82 games to 84. That will also bring down the number of preseason games from about 6 to 8 to 4 capped there.
So then what's important about the timing of this agreement?
I think 2 things are really interesting. The first is that this agreement is getting done in advance of the expiration of the current agreement. So the current agreement expires next season, and this would kick in next season as well. It wouldn't change the current terms of the agreement going into 25-26, the upcoming season. But this gets the job done ahead of the expiration, and this will go through September 2030. So it's nice. It really sets up the league for a little bit of peace, going forward, and I think allows both the players and the league to really focus on expansion. You don't have to go back to these contentious agreements, which we've seen definitely across some of the other major sports as well. It's also the biggest accomplishment for NHLPA Executive Director Marty Walsh. This is his first big agreement. And, we have seen 3 lockouts in the last 20 years. So this is the first extension that's been done during Bettman's 32-year tenure. So it's a really good sign for the league that everybody's kind of on the same page and we're all pushing to growth in the same way.
Yeah, very good points there. And I'm also fascinated with the 2 extra games. They haven't had those 2 extra games since the 1990s, which is really kind of crazy to think about. Do you think that this new CBA, Meredith, really sets the NHL up for continued growth? They had this great Four Nations tournament over the All-Star break, that this just furthers them in terms of growth past 2030 here.
Yeah, I think the next half decade will be a really interesting test for them. For me, really what I'm thinking about is it can be a really player-friendly setup as well. So the cap is going to grow over the next 3 years. I think it's going to be 113 million over the next 3 years where it tops out. And that's really player-friendly. It's going to allow great moves, great contracts for this league that really wants to grow in terms of its star power, not having this monkey on the back of the player negotiations for an upcoming CBA, lets the league lock in and focus. The other piece of it that's very interesting is, we still have these really great media rights deals with ESPN and TNT for the next 3 years. The league also just signed in April a 12-year agreement with Rogers as well. So, they know where they're going to be broadcast. They know what the money is going to be in the league. And I think that focus is going to allow the league to, really pour some fuel on the fire, hopefully, and take advantage of some of the eyeballs that have come to the league this year.
And Meredith, real quick here, the draft tonight, what should we expect there?
Yes, so the draft, always fun, very exciting. The consensus overall pick looks like it's going to be Matthew Schaefer, who is a defenseman. He will go to the Islanders. Anything could happen, but the expectation is he will go to the Islanders, who had I think, 3% odds to get that pick. We'll also be looking at Michael Misa potentially going to the Sharks. And then from there, other names include Anton Brundell and James Hagan. So after the first 2, lots of surprises.
Absolutely. Meredith Turtz, our editorial director, Front Office Sports. Thank you, Meredith. And who are the winners and losers from the NBA draft? ESPN's Bobby Marks joins us next, right after this.
As we know, it's just we enter every year and it's, is this the Ravens' time? Is this Lamar Jackson's turn? Can they get past the Chiefs and all of these other, stalwarts of the AFC? But it's always really about Kansas City when we're talking Baltimore.
This potentially, Adam, as I send it back to you, potentially is a game changer in that you get a very talented quarter at a discount price.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We are seeing unbelievable temperature surges over the past couple of days. So I wanted to ask you this question to let the people know, how do we account for that in our handicapping? 2 good pitchers on the mound, but you look at a place like Wrigley Field, let's just say, 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out, 90-plus degree temperatures. Is it almost like you say to yourself, you just have to fade the environment and not worry about the pitchers, because if we're hitting fly balls, they're going yard?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
It was the first time, I think, in Dodgers history that the ballpark was full in the first inning. Everybody was there to see Shohei Ohtani throw his first pitch as a Dodger, and I had mixed emotions about this for a few reasons. Number one, it was a reminder of, wow, this is so crazy, right? You're watching him hit 98, 99, even 100 on the radar gun going, this guy's not human. Nobody should be able to be this good of a hitter and this good of a pitcher.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I can't even believe I'm saying pitcher's battle and using the words Patrick Corbin. But can I tell you, Scott, he's a different guy. He's a totally different guy with the Rangers than we've seen.
I say this all the time. Don't worry about the first 5 innings. Don't even watch the first 5 innings in Texas Ranger games. Because for whatever reason, there's a ton of runs scored in the first 5, and then it just stops. It just stops.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Derryl Barnes. I'm Baker Machado. And now the dust is all settled, Derryl, from the NBA draft. So who did pretty good, and who do we still have our head scratching after some of the picks that they had? Plus, will Ace Bailey, as his representatives told us yesterday, is he really jazzed to play for the Jazz, or will he not play for them at all? Let's get into that and so much more with ESPN's front office insider, Bobby Marks. Bobby, once again, congratulations on great draft coverage for ESPN. Before we get into the draft and a bunch of other things, let's talk about the front office news in Toronto with Masai Ujiri. What sort of happened here that he left Toronto, given the fact that he was an executive of the year just a few years ago?
Yeah, you had started to hear some whispers that there might be some turnover there. And certainly when you're looking at certainly new management or ownership that comes in there, that's always would probably cause a little bit of a concern there. I think, just speaking about Masai in general, I first got to know him in 2010 during the Carmelo Anthony trade talks when I was in New Jersey, and you could see what he did in Denver. And anytime you win a championship like he did in Toronto, that kind of puts you on a level, different than other executives there. It was a terrific run. If he still wants to do this crazy job in the NBA, I'm sure there'll be plenty of teams out there. It's interesting though, because Bobby Webster, his right-hand man, they did make they made it known in the press release that he had been recently extended to a new contract. And Bobby's a terrific person. He worked in the league office for a while.
So let's run it back to the draft then. I want to talk about, obviously, Ace Bailey been the big storyline. We had the president of his agency on the show yesterday. They were telling us, they're excited about Utah and everything. But I'm curious, what is your take and what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, before the draft, when I was asked this multiple times, it wouldn't bother me if a player never came in and worked out. Just based on, if you're relying on a workout, then I think you're in trouble. Certainly you want to get to know the player and see what type of person he is, personality wise. As far as Utah drafting him, I give him credit. He was the best player on the board. And when you have the best player on the board, you go out and draft him. What are Ace's options if he doesn't show up? Limited, extremely limited. Utah is going to tender him they call it a rookie tender, first round rookie tender. It's basically a contract, and that means they have his rights as far as moving forward here, and he basically would have to sit out 3 years, I think, to be able to kind of not have any affiliation with Utah, and I don't think that's going to happen. I expect him to be in Utah. I looked at a guy who got drafted. He put the hat on. He was smiling. He was engaged. I don't know why this is going there. I don't know what type of advice he's getting, but he's the top 5 pick in the NBA. He's going to a terrific team. He's got a terrific coach, and there's a terrific foundation there.
Well, a lot of people have compared this to Steve Francis' situation many, many years ago. Do you see comparisons to that?
Well, now you're really dating it back, right?
Yeah, really.
Now we're really rewinding the clock. I know it's a little bit different. I think he has a great situation in Utah. I'm telling you, like, he's going to play, and he's going to play a lot of minutes here. And you don't want to, as I said, there's 4 years, $40 million is the rookie contract.
Right.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money that you would be willing to forfeit. So I think everything will get resolved eventually here.
All right. So Bobby, let's talk about who impressed you at the draft. Who set themselves up for success here?
Yeah, I mean, I like what Atlanta did. They traded for Kristaps Porzingis, and of course, he has to be healthy. They drafted Asen Newell. They actually moved back from 13 to 23 in a trade with New Orleans, and then part of that trade is that the pick that was traded to Atlanta. That's kind of been the buzz, right?
Yeah.
Like not just in the media, like executives we've talked about, because the pick could either be New Orleans or Milwaukee's, and you guys follow basketball. You know how tough the Western Conference is. Mm-hmm. You know that this Pelicans team was in the lottery last year. We're watching Milwaukee, of course, as far as what they can do to build around Giannis. That pick potentially could be really, really good. And so I do like what Atlanta did. I think they're going to be active when it comes to free agency. So they were Utah also, but for right now, Atlanta was my big winner.
So then on the other side, then you talk about the Pelicans pick. Are they your big loser?
Well, I think it's important to separate like the Pelicans into like 3 different columns, right? I am a huge fan of Jeremiah Fears, who they picked at 7.
Okay.
And I said this on TV, and I'm like, I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. They needed rebounding. They needed a paint presence. They were last in points in the paint allowed, and they go out and draft Derek Queen, the center from Maryland. Great, you accomplished that, right? But man, I hope it wasn't at the risk of a top 5 pick in next year's draft. And so that's how the 3 buckets are. So when you look at it that way, I credit them for their draft picks. I don't credit them for the strategy as far as how they went about doing it.
Yeah, no, very good point. And especially, you're right, if that turns into potentially the number 1 pick, a lot of people are going to be asking what Joe Dumars did in New Orleans. Bobby, next week officially starts the offseason. A lot of these trades will become official. A lot of players now will be able to officially sign with teams. What are you sort of looking out for next week? What might be the big headlines that we might see?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly we're going to pay attention to the Lakers, right? I think we have to. LeBron has and Dorian Finney-Smith both have player options on Sunday. I think we should keep an eye on Dorian Finney-Smith as far as if he becomes a free agent and what the market would look like for him. They've been out front, Rob Pelinka, their general manager, saying we need a center, right? Like they said, you saw it at the trade deadline. They tried to get one. He made it known after the season that a center is going to be a priority. Now, here's the question: like, how do you go out and get a center when you have the $5.7 million tax mid-level exception? You do have $60 million plus in expiring contracts. You have a first-round pick in 2031. You've got a couple seconds. So that's going to be the main goal. Certainly with the Lakers, Milwaukee, of course, right? Like, I think every summer you're on the clock when you have Giannis on your roster. This is a little bit more challenging because of Damian Lillard injury. Brook Lopez, Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr., Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter Jr., all free agents coming up here. So I'm intrigued as far as what Milwaukee does to add around Giannis.
All right, really quickly, yes or no, does Giannis get traded?
No, I don't. On Get Up this morning, and they gave me 20 seconds to answer this, and it was like at the end of the show, they said, all right, Bobby, what team is Giannis going to be on? You got 20 seconds. And I was like, talk about setting me up to fail here. And I said to myself, I'm not going to let our social media team win on this. And I said, Milwaukee. I said, because of the loyalty factor here. And we'll see. He's been very loyal to that organization. Every time there's been a little bit of turmoil, he always signed an extension. He is not extension eligible. So I think this thing plays out. And let's see what this roster looks like in a month or 2 months from now.
Love it. Bobby, good stuff as always. Get some sleep. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. ESPN Front Office Insider Bobby Marks joining us. And we got more Front Office Sports today. Head your way right after this quick break.
What do you make of this price tag here, reportedly, of $1.7 billion for a club that right now technically doesn't even have a home ballpark?
We don't see a lot of teams sold in Major League Baseball. I mean, if you go back to 2020, Steve Cohen bought the New York Mets for $2.4 billion. The only team sold since then was the Orioles last year, also for around $1.7 billion.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go with Cam Young at 30-1. I think it's a really nice course for him at the Rocket Mortgage in Detroit, Michigan for him. Wyndham Clark at 36-1. And I also like Alex Noren at 60-1.
My Morency drunken Brett dart toss golf pick, which does win like 2-3 times a year, guys. Insanely enough. But I'm going to say Matt Fitzpatrick.
Sports Rage tonight. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I do believe that SJ now is the #1 player in the world. The things that he can do from the point of attack, offensively and defensively, his ability to drive downhill and score in all 3 levels. And the thing I like most about this young man at 26, he's so humble. He's so humble. And that speaks to the whole culture of OKC that Sam Presti and Mark Daigneault has built. Humble team, folks.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado. Well, F1, the $200 million film starring Brad Pitt, finally hits theaters this week. So is the film going to bring in some new audiences for F1 as the sport continues to grow? Well, earlier, Renee and I got the chance to talk with Screen Vision CEO John Partilla about that exact topic. Take a look. And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and movie and racing fans are pumped for the release of F1 that's hitting theaters on June the 27th. So, is this a big moment, not just for the box office, but for ratings fans as well? Well, to get some insight into that, let's bring in John Partilla. He's the CEO over at Screen Vision Media. John, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, F1, obviously, this is going to be a great moment for the box office, but do you think racing fans will probably like this as well?
Yes, this is what they call a crossover movie in the sense that it's got tremendous appeal for the F1 fans that are passionate enthusiasts. It's obviously got tremendous box office appeal when you've got Brad Pitt, Javier Bardem. It's a great sports, lifestyle, and broad appeal movie that people are very, very excited about.
And what I love is F1, as I was watching the trailer and the previews, it feels like they got the authenticity of what Formula One racing is all about. What have you noticed is that evolution of more sports-specific films that have, whether it's players, coaches, people involved that can understand how to honestly properly tell the sports story.
Yes, just very briefly, they put a lot of time and effort into making sure that the stars were really trained in the F1 cars and were able to really be able to navigate the racetrack. And they trained for over a year. To be able to, believably be able to really be on course and be able to be an active action participant in the movie. So that was amazing. And then the other thing, I think, to add some real life sensibility, Apple released the first ever haptic trailer. And so for those of you that experienced it, your phone vibrated during the trailer of F1 that Apple released on iPhones.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes,
That's really
only,
interesting.
So that's something new then.
Brand new, the first ever haptic trailer released on iPhone. And I think that really tried to speak to the fact that it was really striving for authenticity and what people wanted to feel through this experience. So buckle up.
I also love that sort of built this fandom from the Drive to Survive on Netflix to now it being on screens. Do you feel like that sort of helped F1 sort of get the attention it needed to because it built this fandom from shows on Netflix and everything else?
It did very, very much. And I think that's where streaming and cinema can really help each other, right? And I think people too often have looked at it as, one there's a winner or a loser. And it's not the case at all. I think different franchises and different distribution outlets feed and build fan bases across the spectrum.
Wow, and then also just looking at the movie theater experience for F1 to be launching. I know we were talking about beforehand, but to have, whether it's Brad Pitt on screen, Lewis Hamilton involved with producing it, and then this incredible, you mentioned from the haptics, everything else, experience. What have you taken away from just how F1's rolled out?
People really want to, in movies like this, they want to feel the experience, right? And we've been at some of these type films before, like Top Gun, et cetera, where you really feel like you're inside the experience. And I think that's what great sports films also try and create, is a feeling that you're in the rush.
Well, is that the IMAX experience, given the fact that this was filmed for IMAX?
Yes.
So is that part of the experience you feel like you have to do?
Think, whether you want to go experience an IMAX, which I'm sure many people will, or you just want to experience on your normal 50-foot screen, I think people are really going to feel in a way that they're participating in that experience in a way you wouldn't necessarily sitting home on your couch. And that's where the big screen experience brings it to life.
Yeah, we've been seeing so much more being done to encourage people to get back to the movie theaters. Obviously, there was a shift, the pandemic and other reasons that led people to watch more from home. But how do you think this helps in that push to give people that separation, that watching from home is fun in our pajamas too, but to get out and go to your local theater and be able to see a movie like F1 is something that you should have planning, with friends, with family, whatever it may be, as that experience again that you talk about.
We often talk about the fact that the movie-going experience, the whole experience of movie-going, is a little different than movie watching at home on your couch or on your device or a smaller screen. And what you're really doing when we all go to the movies, you're surrendering, I think, to the large experience, right? You're putting away your phone for the most part.
Good point.
You are just sucked into the whole overall experience, and you get to escape for a bit in a way that you really don't in a different kind of home environment anywhere else.
This makes me want to go to the movies.
I eat more popcorn than I do at the movie theaters than I ever do at my house.
Getting my cherry, blue raspberry, icy. It's time to go.
You're lost in that experience, and that's the beauty of it.
And we can't wait for F1. John, thank you so very much for joining us. And our thanks, of course, to John Partilla, the CEO over at Screen Vision Media, and of course, F1 in theaters right now for you to watch. Now, Derryl, are you going to go see this? Because I definitely want to see it in IMAX. I feel like because it was filmed in IMAX, the experience, I want to enjoy that. But It's tracking for about $40 million domestically and a lot more internationally, so it looks like this could still be a big hit for Apple.
I mean, I definitely want to go watch it, and I want to watch it in the best experience because they seem to be all about the experience. I mean, the haptic feedback on the trailer, if you were watching on your iPhone, was just insane. And so, I mean, this is another thing that definitely, in my opinion, will put more eyes on F1. You had Drive to Survive, the Netflix series, and now this. Brad Pitt. He's going to get more people.
Meanwhile, guys, enjoy the weekend. We'll be back next week for more Front Office Sports Today. Jerome Bettis is going to join us to talk about Aaron Rodgers and more. We'll see you later.
Like a salary dump, and that's what the shocking part